Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Song. It's an
My
honor for
pleasure.
you
Thank you for having me.
to get on here. You're a magical, loving, powerful being that I wanted to get the chance to share with the world. So, I guess the reason I started this podcast is just to have fun conversations. It's a good excuse to have a nice conversation. And also, I like to collect stories from people. Love to hear where they come from and what they see. And so I guess that's pretty much the only goal here.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm happy to share what I can.
Awesome. Where does your story start? Where are you from?
Hmm. That's a big question.
It is.
um, yeah, maybe easy for some. And for me, my start, I was born in Seoul, South Korea, and adopted as a toddler into a family in the Midwestern United States. So I grew up around the Midwest, and
Okay,
now I'm living in Kansas City.
nice. What was your childhood like? What was
Hmm.
what was the family like?
It was very, I guess I would say it was very wholesome in a lot of ways. Growing up in Iowa, kind of public schools, two parents and a sibling, couple dogs, um, and also very unique, I think, in some ways in retrospect. Of course, at the time, when you're a child, I don't know about you, but for me, my childhood was just my childhood. But
For sure,
being
yes.
adopted,
Not till you're looking back.
um, yeah, having been adopted, I think was a bit unique, and yeah, yeah. So there were some, I think, unique experiences and challenges um, and aspects to my story that came from that. But yeah, it was pretty healthy and wholesome overall, I think.
What did your parents do?
My parents were both in the transportation industry when I was growing up. So, working in logistics, getting people from point A to point B with such and such freight or cargo or packages. Um, yeah, just probably the perfect parents for me. Um, I came in to this existence, I think, um, very much. Um, I think I spent a lot of years not fully really here. I think some
Mm,
babies are born and come in and they're really here. They're really in their bodies. They're really in this plane of reality. And my experience was it took a lot to get me fully here. I'm still working on that actually. But yeah, I think I really had the perfect parents. They had a lot of training and development and background in um, yeah, logic and reasoning and the physical plane of reality and navigating it. And so I'm really grateful for their parenting.
so did that make you feel more grounded, or why do you say that? Like why is that
Just
a
looking
good
back, I can see I probably was able to. I think their parenting really equipped me with skills and capacities and training and guidance that, looking back, I could see I could have suffered a lot without. Um, so I am grateful for it now in retrospect. Now at the time, it was just a pain in my a pain in my rear. Um, but yeah, yeah. Like I remember one time, I think I must have been, probably almost 10 years old. We were driving to school, and this route to school was literally like a right turn, another right turn. drive a really long way, and then the school's on your left. And, you know, no more than a few miles. And I remember my parents like somehow in conversation realizing that I had no idea how to get to school, and we had been so many times, and just the feeling the sense of surprise coming from them, and like this just shock that we could have made this journey so many times and I had no idea where we were or how to get where we were going. So like that, it's just not um, navigating this physical reality was not something I came in with as a strength. And yeah, they really gifted me that.
That's funny. My, yeah, my parents didn't tell me where we lived or my phone number or anything like that. I had a kind of similar, sounds like, but not, but different. Yeah, my dad was a federal drug agent, so I had a very bizarre childhood trying to be
Your dad was a
invisible.
what?
Federal drug agent, DEA.
Oh god.
So we just had to pretended he was an accountant, pretended all these things, and I had to go along with it. So yeah, it was a lot of weird learning to navigate on my end.
Yeah, fascinating. Navigating the social landscape, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, yeah. I get a whole prejudice thing, people not liking you for something you didn't do, kind of stuff like that. Makes sense to me. Mm,
Jordan, the video is just been freezing a little bit. I don't know if there's anything to do about that, but if I don't respond immediately, it's because I think there may be a little bit of a lag.
yeah, I see a little lag, but the audio is good, so I think it should be good. So I guess moving into what was your middle school like? What was that like for you? Like growing up, becoming a young adult kind of journey?
Um, Middle school. Oh gosh. The first
Yeah.
thing I thought of when you asked me was my dog. I think you've met her. Her name's Isla. She's a little 8 pound, half Chihuahua, half rat terrier, adorable. And I've seen other people's small dogs, particularly Chihuahuas, and I've never quite encountered one that acts like Isla does. And I sometimes feel like I'm interacting with my middle school self with her, like this reflection of that part of myself. In that she is, we call her General Isla. She acts like a little army general, even though she's 8 pounds, and she'll like hang out with these other dogs that are, you know, 10, 15 times her size. And she's like the boss. She is the boss applesauce, and she runs around and keeps everyone in line. And yeah, and that like is the role that she takes. And that was me in middle school, elementary school and middle school. Um, I had no issue asserting myself and um, organizing things and people and the play. My parents got phone calls repeatedly from the school teachers saying, she's doing it again. She's bossing everyone around. She's telling them what to do. But they always did it. And uh, and that was how I had fun. Um, so I had some challenges with like we were talking about the social landscape, just navigating, learning how to uh, navigate that in other ways um, as well. But yeah, I was a little bit of a army general myself back then.
That's
Maybe
funny.
still.
You got some leadership qualities still for sure.
Yeah, I access it at times when I need to in my restaurant management, and yeah, organizing events and things that can come, that capacity can come in really handy. And yeah, middle school for me was a lot about understanding people's emotional sensitivities and their navigating, dealing with different personalities and identities, and well into my adulthood, I've been on a path of learning to be more inclusive of um, and compassionate around other people, and not just the vision and the direction that I would love to create.
Sure. Yeah, I think that is a lifelong lesson for everybody. Um, I guess moving into high school, anything changed from middle school to high school?
Yeah, well, I experienced a couple, traumatic, nothing major, but to my heart, traumatic um, experiences, in elementary school, middle school, around, social nuance. And so by the time I hit high school, it had become very important to me to be a good girl and uh, get along. And I became, by that time, um, a lot quieter in my expression, a lot more considerate. Um, yeah, just more reserved and more um, contemplative. I don't think I was as socially expressive, but started to express myself in other ways, like through art, music, uh, even schoolwork became very important for me to be good at school. And yeah, I became very achievement oriented, but a lot quieter.
Hmm. Is that something you're still dealing with at all, or is that you feel like that's still was that kind of like a protection mechanism, or why do you think you did became quieter? I'm just curious.
It is actually something that I'm I've been really integrating a lot lately, very recently, um, and finding that sort of mm, middle place. I don't like the word middle place because it rings of some sort of like I don't know the word, but yeah, finding that balance or that inclusivity of both of those aspects is something that I've been working with lately.
Mm-hmm.
Synthesizing those two aspects of self, the brazen, unabashed, self-expressed child, and the considerate, wanting to be in harmony, include, compassionate um, child as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can feel I'm dealing with learning that too. Because yeah, there's nothing wrong with being quiet, but it's just, are you trying to be too polite when you should speak up, kind of thing?
Mhm.
What was your life like after high school?
Oh, well, I dove deep into my shadow work right at the end of high school, and into college. Um, I was very lost. I was very lost to myself. And I it was a dark time. It was my uh, I think it was all sort of catalyzed. My parents moved our family 2 states away from where we had lived just the summer before my senior year in high school, which just felt absolutely devastating to all of the good girl, achiever plans and dreams that I had for my senior year, for all the hard work that I had done to prepare to have this epic senior year. And then all of a sudden it was like, we're moving in a month. And there was no, you know, experience of space for conversation about that. It was just, that's what's happening.
Hmm.
And didn't deal well. It was a very confusing experience at the time. I started acting out, uh, stealing from my job, things that I didn't want or need, but that I later came to understand was just an acting out, trying to have some sense of control and choice in the matter of my life. And uh, my parents were like, what is going on with you? Like they didn't know what to do, I think. Um, and then ultimately I ended up emancipating myself. So like legally sort of divorcing my parents and got an apartment by myself, moved back to where I'd gone to high school to
Oh,
finish my
wow.
senior. Like, I'm going to do it. And they, I think at that point were so at a loss with me, um, that they were like, okay, you've got to like find your way. And um, I think the big sort of trauma moment during those years, the formative sort of experience was when I finally had, you know, done the steps and was living on my own. I had my own apartment. I had this sparse little like milk crate furniture. And, but it was the dream, right? Like I could do whatever I wanted, go wherever I wanted, you know, complete freedom. And I got up to go to school one day and I just felt this absolute sheer terror in my body. And I sat on the couch and I looked for a reason. Like, why am I feeling this? I love school. I have everything I wanted. I have all this freedom. And yet I am terrified and I cannot move. And I sat on that couch all day. And that happened multiple times. And then it was several years of fighting against that inner terror, like overcompensating, throwing myself into partying and um, uh, drugs and just whatever I could to not only escape that terror, but to say like F you to it, like to try to not be that person. Um, so yeah, it was a dark time and really confusing.
I mean, that's a bold
Sort of
move.
like,
I don't know anybody that's got their own place and committed to school. Like you graduated high school, I'm assuming. Like you still did it. It's just like, yeah, that's a bold move to do senior year.
yep.
And what do you think that anxiety looking back, what do you think that came from? Did you ever find the root of that?
I think it was just all the unmetabolized fear from my childhood. Um, you know, I I think um, I spent most of my childhood where, you know, my parents were the problem, or the rules were the problem, or you know, and it was their fear and it was their worry that I was having to deal with. And I think looking back, like in that moment where I finally had that space and freedom, um, I had to come face to face with that aspect of myself. Um, and yeah, it was very confusing because I had always othered it. You know, it was someone
Hmm.
else's. And for the first time, I had the actual room to confront that aspect in myself. which I think exists in all of us.
Hmm.
But through our, experiences and our stories of ourselves and others and relationships, it can be easy to not own those aspects. And so, yeah, it was just a big coming to terms with um, my own fear and my own, you know, need for boundaries. And uh, yeah, they came down hard. And then I spent many
Yeah.
years in it out.
Yeah, it's not a quick fix. I mean, and a lot of people go their whole lives and they never look within and figure out. They just keep on blaming and excusing, finding excuses, and it's so easy to do that your whole life. It's crazy. But sometimes we
Mm.
get forced to look at it, or we force ourselves to. Do you think we come into this life with lessons to learn? That do you feel like you had these like life circumstances that you could use to grow, and
Um,
you think it's just what it is?
I I would guess so. Um, I don't know if I don't know if it's so much like lessons as much as maybe I'd like to think it's opportunity. We have
Sure.
unlimited opportunity um to to choose our path and also to um be with what's so kind of simultaneously. Like um so do I believe everything was ordained coming in? And I some part of me wants to believe that. It sounds nice. And then there's this other aspect of myself that says, we get this divine opportunity to make of life and ourselves what we will, and maybe it's both. um
Hmm.
so yeah, I would say it's like a dance of being and becoming and navigating and understanding and making meaning of what's so, you know, gravity, this T is here, what's real and what's so, and then also creating and becoming our own reality through imagination and meaning making and beliefs and all the skills and capacities that we do learn to navigate. Um, just shy away from the word lessons because I don't know, maybe my childhood self like just doesn't like the idea that um, there's like this learn your lesson. I don't, it doesn't ring true to me that there's some, uh, I think, I don't know, in my version of like self discipline and development, I would just like to frame it as an opportunity
Yeah,
um,
that's
in
the
learning.
same. It's the same thing, just different words. It's more a little more open. It feels more open that way.
Yeah.
But
I just
yeah,
have
it's
I have a little sensitivity to that, like learn a lesson. I did a lot of that growing up. So
sure. Uh, yeah.
how about
Um,
you? What do you believe about that?
yeah, I think that this place seems like Earth School, so I guess that's why lessons kind of comes for me. It's just, but opportunity is the same. It's the same word, just different word, but it's like the same meaning for me. Like you have opportunities to become a human and see what it's like to be you and learn what it is to be a part of the whole and all that. And so yeah, it's it seems like yeah, opportunities, lessons, same thing. And I can relate. The early 20s were probably my darkest time in life, like when you're out on your own and figuring everything out. I tried all alcoholic, drug addict, sex addict, all the things to try and escape and just feel normal. And eventually you do come back and it's all coming out of you if you want to look within and see that. So yeah, I was gonna ask what do you think you were looking for when you went into the partying and all that stuff? Like what do you think you wanted to get out of it?
There was some aspect of fitting in and belonging,
Mm-hmm.
that I desperately needed at that time, given that I suddenly had this experience of not even belonging in my own body, with the terror that I was experiencing involuntarily and seemingly without reason at the time. It became very important to find places to fit in. Um, and parties, seemed like a real uh, opportunity for that
Mm-hmm.
experience. Um, and Also, there was an aspect of proving myself to myself. I had been playing the good girl for so long that, and I think in the face of the despair that I was experiencing with the fear, um, it was easy at that point, sort of natural to say, screw it. I'll just try this thing that, seems like part of growing up, that maybe there's something there for me. And that proving myself that like I could be reckless and be, sort of brave in that sense. Cause that world had always scared me too. But but yeah, it was sort of like this um, opportunity to be reckless and prove that you know, I could do that. I'm I'm reading the Women Who Run with the Wolves, Dr. Clarissa
Mm-hmm.
Pinkola. And I was just reading the Bluebird story, where the youngest daughter is chosen to be married to Bluebeard, and he tells her to go. She can access all parts of the house, any rooms, the money rooms, and kitchen, any rooms, but the one room with the small key, do not go in. And that was my going into the small room with the key. And uh, yeah, it was just kind of like I explored all of these other aspects, and now time to face the inner predator, the inner saboteur.
Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing you didn't find the partying fulfilling. You're not still chasing that.
No, I it didn't um it filled a lot of time, but it didn't I didn't experience it as fulfilling in
No.
my soul.
Yeah.
Um and Yeah, and some of it, it's, I sort of danced with for a lot of years, um as you know some of the substances became friends, and dependency, was an aspect of it. But no, I didn't really find the party scene fulfilling, and pretty quickly dropped that. And yeah, so no,
And how
I
did
can't remember the
you
last time I
yeah,
did party.
I mean, yeah, once you do it, you got the shirt. You did it. You don't need to. But what did you find to replace it, or how did you drop that
Hmm.
dependency? Like how did that look like for you?
I replaced it with work. As I became, in my adult years, my 20s, I started to just work hard. And I was good at it. I'd been equipped with a lot of skills and capacities that I think had me appear really valuable to employers, and and it became work, and then it became running from work. I I knew that I could fully throw myself into work and show up there, and then simultaneously I did everything I could to avoid fully committing or being responsible um, in different work settings. So I had a lot of like interesting adventure jobs and travel and
Yeah,
um,
where were you working when you threw yourself into work?
well, my first throwing myself in was a job search firm. This was back in the days of paper resumes. It was like right at the end of that era. And uh, I think I started as like a receptionist and then worked my way up very quickly in a few years to be the director of sales support. So managing a team of people and assisting the sales team um, and at that ripe age of whatever, 23, I thought, well, this is going to be my job forever. And then that company closed, paper resumes,
Didn't last.
becoming obsolete. Yeah. So that was a big surprise at the time. And um, that was the realization that uh, career or work also had the potential for disappointment, instability. And so that's when I started saying, oh, I'm going to um, not commit at that level. And I worked in various restaurant jobs. Um, I had a job working event planning on a train. Um, so I got to fulfill that sort of adventurous side, need, um, as well as utilize that work sort of capacity, but not fully commit. And then I went to Alaska for several years and worked as a chef at a fishing lodge in the middle of Katmai National Park.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so you can kind of see like there were like these jobs where I'd be working really hard, but also just not like putting down roots, not committing, keeping myself very carefully sort of detached. Um, yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
then I really threw myself into my spiritual path at that point.
What did that look like?
Mm, I had uh, I'd been in a relationship with a man. It was very unstable, um, violent at times, uh, really, um, you know, one of those sort of like relationships. And toward the end of it, in my desperation, a friend of mine had mentioned something called the Landmark Forum, which was I didn't even know. I mean, they just said it had changed their life. And again, that sense of despair, desperation, I was like, well, let's do it. So I went to this course called the Landmark Forum, and it was a 3-day program. And it does, it didn't provide much in terms of content as much as it provided a new context for living, rooted in, I think, like Buddhism. It has roots in Buddhism as well as just ontological studies. And it opened up this whole new world for me. And so I became pretty obsessed with um, being spiritual. And yeah, I took that course and then I took many of the other courses that they offer. And it was very transformative time for me. Um, and yeah, and then just, started reading all the books um, and all of that.
What what itch did that scratch for you? Like why did that resonate? Like what did you get out of it?
It was new horizons. It was living life in a space of possibility. It was opening up new doors for me where I felt like I was at the end of the road. Um, if I wasn't gonna pour myself into career and really like putting down roots, and it was still really important for me to remain detached from life in many ways. And so it was an access portal to uh, something more, like something beyond. Um, and Looking back at, my ego absolutely loved it. Um, I didn't, I didn't get to realize that until, several years in. But it was like just another way to be right and to know something in all of this chaos, and to feel like I had some sense of stability, even though I refused to create that stability in my life. It was sort of scratching the itch of like that personal sense of stability. It's really, that's important.
Hmm. Did you have any experiences that like catalyze that, or is there anything like aha moments for you?
Um, will you ask me that another way? I'm not sure if I fully understand the question.
Just I know for me, it's just like there's all these experiences along the spiritual path where you're just like, oh, I never considered that was an even. I guess you kind of talked about it, but I was just curious about specific examples of like, oh, this is life is totally different, and there's a new, like you said, a new horizon that I didn't even know was possible, didn't even consider. Because a lot of you can get stuck in the work and the career, and you can do that your whole life and never have any urge to look for anything beyond that.
Yeah, well, I think, that initial taste that I had in the Landmark Forum when I took that course. Like I said, I was just really feeling desperate at that time in the relationship that I was in, and had started feeling, despite my efforts, trapped by my work, and was just in a lot of the experience of suffering. And and then here I was in this course where suddenly it was possible to create my life, to create my life as um, from a place of anything is possible. And before that, I didn't have that. I had, a very certain future of unhappiness and non-fulfillment. And I was a victim of a terrible relationship and a horrible boyfriend. And I was, you know, that was certain until I took that course. And then it was like, um, I was able to see that, oh, like I have some choice here. That was a huge catalyst for me. And specifically when um, I was able to just take responsibility for um, my life circumstances, and more so the meaning that I was making around it for myself, for others, for my relationships, for the world, that I was saying all of that. And if I was saying all of that, then I could say anything. And I started to work that muscle. I started to really work that spiritual muscle of choice and authority and sovereignty. That I was not going to be a victim, that it was possible to live into a new story. Um, and uh, the boyfriend and I healed the relationship. We're still friends to this day. That was not going to happen, without me getting to that place. And um, I was able to start to ask myself really useful questions, like, if anything is possible, then what is it that I'm creating? What is calling me to be here? Why? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? And what, um, it finally sort of started to have it dawn on me that I mattered and that my life mattered, and beyond this small individual self, like matter, like I matter in the world, and um and I have an impact and a responsibility, and um yeah, so it really birthed uh asking myself some really much deeper new questions.
That's beautiful. Yeah, taking responsibility is that's a huge, important opportunity to take.
Yeah.
Was that landmark? Was that in person or what kind of course was it? Did you go somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah, they do it a lot on Zoom now. But at the time it was all in person. And Landmark Worldwide is an organization. They have centers around the world and they offer courses and programs around the world. Um, uh, like to a vast degree. So people who are interested can find it probably pretty close to them in any major city and even some of the not major cities. I did mine in Chicago as a 3-day course, and it blew me wide open. It gave me so much hope, um, that I ended up staying in Chicago and taking the advanced version of that course the very next weekend. And like, if you haven't been able to gather by now, through the telling of my story, when I go hard. And I did that with Landmark and took all sorts of their courses and programs as well, which then led me into more meditation studies and just further and further down that spiritual path, plant medicine, um, yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, how did plant medicine come into the story?
Well, once I took the Landmark Forum and I started to actually like begin to sit in the driver's seat of my own life, in excuse me, in Buddhism, I think there's this saying to sit in the one seat. And that comes to mind. Like, I began to even understand that there was a seat to sit in. Um, and so as I embarked on that journey of sitting in the one seat, um, all these like sort of miraculous synchronicities started to happen. Um, and I would sort of leap in particular directions that felt true, and then things would show up, miraculously. Money would show up, or jobs, or people, and connections. And yeah, I left the Landmark Forum, um, ended that relationship, transformed it into a friendship, um, ended that job, took a new job, and then I ended up working at the Cafe Gratitude in Kansas City, which is a restaurant that also has roots in Landmark. The original founders of Cafe Gratitude did a lot of their own personal development work with the Landmark organization decades prior. And I didn't seek out the cafe for that reason. I discovered that later, which occurred for me as just like, wow, just completely mind blowing, that sort of alignment. And so it kept me on that path with Landmark, and then also some of the people that I met at the cafe were participating with plant medicine in various circles, and eventually I was introduced to that world.
What was your first ceremony like?
Um, let's see. There are two firsts that come to mind, and now when I think back, I can't actually remember which one was timeline wise first,
Mm-hmm.
but they stand out to me as firsts. One was a very last minute road trip with a couple of dear sisters of mine. The two of them were going to sit with, it was going to be like a 2-day journey. One ceremony with a plant that is akin to ayahuasca, and another peyote ceremony. And at the very last minute, they invited me, and I felt a strong yes for it. And so off the three of us went on this road trip. And so sat with the uh, sort of like ayahuasca ceremony the first night, and then drove um, and sat in a peyote circle. Um, and it was simultaneously totally wild and home. Like, I had this experience of being on this great adventure into the unknown, but at the same time, I felt more myself and more secure as myself than maybe I ever had. Um, I remember in the first ceremony, I had taken this, drank this tea, and most of the people were like in this circle. I had to go off and be by myself to feel comfortable. So I went to this other room, and I did most of my ceremony by myself, writhing around, just having this really wild experience. And at that time, I had really short hair. It was like this. And I remember at one point, like, I could barely see it. It was so short, but I could just see it in the corner of my eye. I held out my hair. And suddenly I was like, I just had this knowing, like, I couldn't cut my hair anymore.
What?
And yeah, it was wild.
I
Like,
love it.
I never, I never had a conversation with my hair. I never cared about my hair. It was like
But
just this thing.
why?
And suddenly it was like this being that was speaking to me and saying, like, we're not going to cut this anymore. And
That's
and
amazing.
it was a voice that felt undeniable, like an like a resonance of truth in this. It didn't occur as a thought. It occurred as a conversation with this hair. And it was bewildering and perplexing, but it felt true. And subsequently, I did not cut my hair for 7 years after that. and then became known for this like long hair, like in my community, feel like, oh, she's the one with the hair. And like it was wild because all of that happened out of that ceremony and that conversation with my hair. There was no like, I don't know.
Do you know what it
Uh,
means? Why you couldn't cut your hair?
um
So I've tried to tune in to my hair at ceremonies specifically. I was like, what is
really,
it? Yeah, I tried to, and then my hair is just like, no, there's no, just like I have a feeling that I shouldn't cut it, but I don't know why. So I was just curious if you had any insights why the hair is so powerful.
I discovered um in years since then that like Native Americans, held their hair as very powerful, sort of like a tuning instrument. Um, the um, I've read studies that, or I don't know, I've read articles that speak to even the U.S. government understanding this power of the hair, and that they did a lot of, I guess, sort of field testing with Native Americans, where they would have them on sort of like these like hunting, tracking excursions, and they would test like, does it make a difference? And I heard that they discovered that it did.
Yeah, you
So
can detect people in your area if you have long hair
yeah,
better than if you don't, which is
yeah, like it's actually like an extension of
fascinating.
the nervous system. Yeah. And I find it interesting if it's true. And I wouldn't purport, like I couldn't quote that study, or that's just something I read along the way. But if that's true, I find it really interesting that if the government knew that they're um, still require the military personnel to shave off all their hair. But in any case, yeah, I mean, I think maybe it was my time to explore a more of a environmental and emotional sensitivity, um, to sort of like grow these antenna, and allow myself to receive more um, life intelligence sort of information. It definitely coincided with the period of my life where I did um, a lot of work around becoming more receptive and tuned into my sensitivities. Um, so yeah, that would be my guess, is something to
Uh,
do with
that's so
being
cool. I
tuned
love
in.
that that came through in ceremony.
Yeah. Yeah. It was wild. Yeah.
Anything else from that? That was a 2 day thing. Is there?
Yeah. So then after deciding not to cut my hair anymore, the next day we went to um, a Native American reservation in Minnesota. And I sat with a group of 32 women um, in a peyote circle. And I still feel such a sense of honor and reverence when I think about that experience. And it really was um, a beautiful experience. Is a really beautiful introduction to um, plant medicine in a space of deep, deep honor and reverence and responsibility. I'm so grateful that was one of my first plant medicine experiences. I've carried that with me, and I hope always to carry that sense of reverence with me. I think it shined through the way they held the ceremony and the medicine. Um, I remember, so in a peyote circle, or at least the tradition that I was involved with, we sat up all night, and so it was to attempt to sit up all night with the medicine. Um, and I did my very best. At times, had to
Like
like
literally sitting up.
over to the side. Yeah,
That's
that was like,
interesting.
yeah, the goal is like, up and be present with the medicine. And I remember like, I'd like kind of like start to feel tired. And then I'd look over and this woman, she's the tiniest stature of a woman, with this huge water drum. And she was just keeping the beat the entire night. And she would go around the circle to each participant and drum while they had the opportunity to sing their prayer to the fire in the center of the circle. And she was my inspiration, man. I still think about her, her little body and that huge drum and her huge spirit, and just like her her sense of like responsibility and honor, just and like the fortitude, um that she just kept that going all night. And the fire tenders and the people, and the so I just was so inspired, being in their presence, and in the presence of the songs and the medicine. I didn't I didn't really feel much. And to this day, I don't know, like I haven't participated with that plant again since then. And so I don't know if it was just, you know, um, obviously I had the experience I was meant to have. I don't know if other people maybe feel it in a different way, but it didn't occur for me. Like it was the ceremony, it was the community and the
Hmm.
tradition and the circle that was the medicine for me in that experience. It was the experience. It was the sitting up all night and being asked and invited to really discover and meet that part of myself that can show up and 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 participate and contribute and pray and feel. And yeah, and then after sitting up all night, and this is my first time, I had no idea what was going on. Or then I discovered, oh, after sitting up all night, we are gonna build an inipi and a fire, and then we're gonna do a sweat lodge. And this is my first time doing that. I had that experience, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, really? And it just kept going and going. So this is all night, and then into the next day, and then it was maybe like, I don't know, late morning. They bring out the corn and I think there was like corn and maybe beans and it's just a very simple meal. And the jubilation and celebration that I felt, when they brought that food and we passed it around and we ate it with our hands, um, was so fulfilling and rewarding and nourishing. um, that was a huge part of the ceremony, the medicine for my soul, was to experience that, like, um, that sense of communion at the end with the food and the nourishment and bringing in um, the mother aspect after that, like, you know, inner father sort of like aspect all night of sitting and drumming and, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny how the best meals in your life can be simple as corn and beans. Doesn't have to
mhm.
be some five-star anything.
Yeah, I will never forget it. It's absolutely magic.
Awesome. So that got your interest peaked in the plant medicine world.
Yeah, that was like, let's go. And um and again, I I went and I went hard. There were several years where I was doing a lot of plant medicine and yeah, different different medicines. I traveled for it. I sat in various circles. Um Yeah. And it's been a it's been an aspect of my journey that's really, brought me home to myself, um, and particularly birthed me into this body. The just before that, I think, with the courses and the meditation, there was a lot of sort of like quieting the mind that I think I needed to do, groundwork sort of, that I can now see was happening in preparation for really birthing myself into the body. But the plant medicine work, I feel like, is what had me um, uh, it really kind of like ushered me in, which is interesting because at the time I really felt like it was the opposite. Like I was going to meet spirit. I was going to, um, some other realm. I'd hear these stories about people taking plant medicines and shooting out into, like other galaxies and beings, and what I can say, I mean, I've had some really fascinating experiences like that, I guess, in a spiritual sense. But for me, at least, the journey was about being birthed into this body and finally, giving myself permission and choosing to be here,
Hmm.
um, to be here in this world.
Yeah, that is so interesting how everybody can take the same medicine and have absolutely different experiences. Like, I think it's like a circle. Like some people do need to go out into the cosmos and the astral, and some people do need to come in to their body, and they can be just as profound.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that. What's your future, you think, with plant medicine? Are you gonna continue down that, or has it changed at all since you've had a few journeys now?
I definitely slowed down with it in terms of like the frequency, and intensity of the journeys, and ceremonies. I uh I had like I had a few years back where I was having some really difficult um experiences with plant medicine in like surprising ways. Um like mushrooms. Mushrooms had always been, my playful, fun sort of allies.
Mm.
And suddenly during this year that I'm referencing, I was every time I would go to them having these really hard experiences and almost gave it up altogether. They, were so difficult that I started to think, well, maybe, I'm not, maybe it's a no for me. Um, and they brought me back to, um, again, being here, um, and sort of like integrating the understanding of, okay, there's like the spiritual aspect, but there's also this sort of like physical body and physical plane of existence, and how do I um, coexist and co-create with all of that? And the answer ended up being just learning how to bring more structure and order to my ceremonial experiences or spiritual sort of journeys, um, to keep a sense of balance or to create a sense of balance. So, like with the mushrooms, for instance, they, through those difficult experiences, were showing me the importance of, ritual. And um, and so I started to discover that, oh, if I be still at the beginning for sometimes up to 2 hours, like I just be really still and let it integrate, like let myself receive the medicine in communion in a way that is like fully um just as present and aware as possible, which is the medicine, then I'd be fine. Then I would have these beautiful journeys again. And so it took some like trial and error, and also like just, you know, sort of angels in my life that showed up with education and information and other ways and possibilities that I was able to integrate into my own way with it. Um, but yeah, it was a big learning about um, again, honor and reverence and structure and that balance of masculine and feminine. And yeah, and I was able to find a way. And then since then, I've noticed that um, I have not felt as called to that particular medicine, and also just in general. Um, and I don't know, to answer your question, I think um, I'm open to being on that journey with plant medicine, as long as I am. And also I don't feel a sense of attachment with it. I could see the possibility of never doing it again, and I could see the possibility of continuing the rest of my life or something in between. And I imagine it'll probably be something in between. Um, and and really what I'm creating in my hope and prayer for myself and for this world is to just continue to hold it with reverence to whatever degree I choose to participate with it. Um, to hold it to um, with reverence and acceptance and openness. Um, and I think with all of these gifts of life, trees, grass, flowers, food, um, that we be in relationship with our mother,
Mm-hmm.
um, Mother Earth, and all of her gifts and nourishment.
Yeah, they are miracles, and we take them for granted so easily.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, some people say once you get the message, you hang up the phone kind of thing. And just integrating, I know I'm still integrating experiences I had with plant medicine from 15 years ago or 10 years ago, or whatever. It's just I'm still like, how do I get to that place again? Or how do I live from that place again? And it can take like, yeah, a long time to integrate it all. So
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I love that you bring up that word integration, because it, yeah, is maybe never ending, sort of. And I would guess, more important than the actual experience in the ceremony is the integration of it, and what are you going to make of it, and how, are you receiving it and carrying it and sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, that's what kind of made me name this podcast Walking Without Feet. That seems to be my integration, to be in the world but not of it.
Mm,
It's like been a huge lesson. Integrating that is, yeah. I just had my ACL replaced, and it's just like to not be able to walk but still hold that energy of like flowing. Yeah, I mean, it's a life lesson. It never ends. It feels like.
for sure.
Anything else comes to mind? I know you already spoke about community. Community seems to be something you're very plugged into. Uh, and it was like one of your first ceremonies was all about community. Um, yeah, what would you say for someone that wants to find community in this space or find community in general? What would you offer them?
The first thing coming through in response to that question is to ask oneself why. Um, why is that important to me? Why is community or connection um, something that I want? And it seems, I guess it could seem like it's obvious. Um, we all want a sense of belonging and support and um, self-reflection. And and I think for me, looking back, what I could what I could share is that the journey with community um, had had some surprising gifts to offer for me and some surprising reasons underneath why it appealed to me so much. Um, what I've come to discover is part of my a huge part of my deep need for community was um, not so much to I hear people say like find like-minded individuals, and what I've come to discover is I don't care about that. I don't care about finding like-minded individuals. What I actually cared about, what I was actually needing, was to find myself and to experience myself as free to be with others. Um, and so I actually needed not like-minded individuals. I needed a lot of contrast and dissonance and challenge um, and all of that was gifts that provided me a sense of like coming home to myself and feeling confident to stand as myself with others and also receive the gift of their pure presence, um, and not just the gift of their agreement or um, shared beliefs. Um, and so, yeah, I think if I could offer anything or share anything about finding community, it would be just to maybe ask that question of why is it important to me? What is that need? Um,
Oh, we lost song. So hopefully she comes back here soon. I liked her response to that question, finding community. Why do you want to find community? What need does that fulfill in you? I guess my answer to that question is follow your follow your interests. Follow what excites you. And there's a lot of people out there that also probably share that interest as well. Guess we'll give song a moment to jump back on here. So the first time we lost somebody in the middle of a call. Hey,
Hey.
and she's back.
So yeah, just to ask oneself why, and that maybe there are some gems there that weren't expected. Um, that our needs are can be, very unique and vast and wide. And I would never have thought that I was hurtling myself toward, the path that I was for the reasons that I later discovered. So yeah,
Yeah, you
I
don't seem
hope.
to have any issues throwing yourself into the unknown. Kind of to do that in high school is a bold move again, coming back to that. So you got
Yeah,
some
yeah.
experience.
I
That's
felt pretty comfortable with the unknown. It's the yeah, navigating what seems to be known. That's been my crucible.
what what do you think has helped you the most come back into your self since you've discovered that was your insight from that?
Um it's helped me the most. Hmm. I'm looking for like a most, which is hard to say, but
Or helped you at all? It doesn't have to
yeah,
be.
yeah. I mean, definitely my community, definitely um following desire and longing um has been a guiding light that even through times where it seemed to lead me down difficult or dark paths, what's always been there for me is a sense of longing. Um, and yeah, I would say um, feeling in general, um, something which for many years I tried to avoid. Um, I later, have come to discover has been um, the sort of juice of life, the river, the way. And so thank God for it. And yeah, yeah, following the feelings and being willing to take responsibility for the impact of that.
That will get you to some new places for sure. Yeah, there's especially in our culture, it feels like people would rather, doesn't matter how you feel, you just kind of bulldoze ahead to get ahead kind of thing. And it's almost the opposite of that, to actually come back to who you are and get rid of that programming. And that, yeah, and you do need to feel and take responsibility for it. It's beautiful. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share? That was awesome. I enjoyed your story.
I had fun. Thank you for listening and for inviting me to share. Yeah, and it's always a joy to see you and um, yeah, other than to say I wish you and your family well. It's been great being with you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for doing this. I'll have to
Pleasure.
check in soon and see how it's going. But all right. Thanks so much. See you later.
Thank you.